himself, but the ropes that bound him to the chair were tied too tight. He was stuck. Someone came to get him. But then he heard a sound from the hallway, one that wasn't screams, and a sound that was getting closer and closer to his door. They were footsteps, but they weren't these loud, booming footsteps, but instead the pitter-patter of children's feet. A child running quickly into the room in excitement. The young boy entered the room. He was dressed in a red onesie and a red devil's mask, and through the eye holes of the mask, the man in the chair could tell that these kids' eyes were bulging, sticking out of his sockets like large fish eyes. The man began pleading with the child to free him, but the child would just say, "You did a bad thing." The man would insist that he didn't do anything. The child would only reaffirm this, saying he did a really, really bad thing. He would shake his head in protest, saying that whatever he did, he was sorry, but he couldn't remember. He couldn't remember anything, and just pleaded with the boy to please set him free. But as he pleaded with the boy, a large man in overalls with an angry expression on his face had burst into the room, and he could see in his hands was a sawed-off shotgun. He would shove the child against the wall before pointing the gun at him and pulling the trigger. The man in the chair would scream out in horror at the sight of the transpired in front of him. The man in the overalls grabbed the body, sling it over his shoulder, and walk out of the room. And as he left, a chorus of laughter could be heard coming from the hallway. The laughter would fade after several minutes, and just as the man thought he was alone again in the room, he would hear a voice call out to him. Another man was in the room with him now, one in jeans and a white button-up shirt. He opened the door.
Is he just reading a bunch of random fucking... No, there's Pig again.
His eyes looked as though they were like
kind of losing interest.
And his mouth seemed to be in a perpetual frown. He would look at the man in the chair and cross his arms, saying that he must be the new one, and that he was disgusted by him. He could tell that the man in the chairs had already seen the horrors of this place, and in comparison, where he came from had to look a lot better than here. But the man in the chair again would say that he's sorry for whatever he did, that he didn't mean to upset him or the people here, that he couldn't remember what he had done. But he would be told he hadn't done anything to anyone here. It was what he had done to himself. He was reminded that one day, after his wife left for work, he would bring a rope to the woodshed and end his own life. The man in the chair was dead by his own hand, and this place that he found himself in was his punishment. The memory of doing so came back painfully as he could remember.
Wait, what?
Okay. After his wife left for work, he would bring a rope to the woodshed and end his own life. The man in the chair was dead by his own hand, and this place that he found himself in was his punishment. The memory of doing so came back painfully as he could remember everything now. He lost his job recently and didn't have enough in savings, meaning he would be homeless soon. His wife hated him and threatened to leave him. To make matters worse, she had started seeing someone new. The man was humiliated and ashamed, and thought of the worst possible way to try and run from his problems. The man in the white shirt would introduce himself as Danny and say that he was the #2 person in charge of this place. And before they began, he would answer one question for the man in the chair. And he asked the only question that he felt bad about: is this hell? Danny would laugh and explain, no, it's not hell. It certainly isn't heaven either. This was a place called the Black Farm. Danny would explain that this was a place that God created for those people in lives. There were good people who did so, and they shouldn't be punished forever in hell because of one mistake and one abuse. And yet, they still committed a sin, and they couldn't be welcomed in heaven. And so he named the Black Farm instead. And over time, things went wrong. God would use the this place, and would put something called the pig in charge. But after putting the pig in charge, God either forgot about this place or quit caring about it altogether. The pig became corrupt with power. The Black Farm,
dude, what type of slop is this?
Served as a peaceful afterlife for those who had ended their lives prematurely. It was now the torturous nightmare that we see today, full of creatures that the pig made, and its bastardized to create its own course of life. These are the monsters that we see inhabiting this place, the ones that come into the room and torture him. The boy, such as the man in the overalls. These aren't real people, but beings, monsters in the pig's creation. The man in the chair felt like this had to be a bad dream, one that he would surely wake up from at any moment. He couldn't spend his eternity suffering in a nightmare that God forgot, a place of monsters and torture under the control of something called the pig. But he wouldn't wake up. Danny would continue, saying that the Black Farm didn't have to be where Danny spent his eternity. He had one option to get out of this place, one and only one. He could feed the pig. The man asked what this meant. Danny would explain that if the man decided to feed the pig, there was a chance that he could be returned back to his old life. It was only a chance, though. If he fed the pig and wasn't returned back to his old life, then he would end up in hell. It was a 50-50 shot. Go back home or burn in hell. But those were if he decided to. He could always decide not to. Stay here in the Black Farm. Sure.
I hope he didn't tie that rope too tight.
It was a brutal, painful landscape. But Danny promised that even as impossible as it seemed, from the sounds coming at the end of that hallway and what awaited the man, if he decided to stay here, the hell would be worse. Even if not by much, it would be worse than here. The man would hear another scream from the hallway. This one belonged to a woman. And he looked at Danny and say that he wants to feed the pig. But Danny would say this isn't a decision to be made lightly. That he would leave the man with some time to think about it, and he'd be back a while when the man has come to his decision. And Danny left, leaving the man alone. And the man would break down and cry as he heard the sound of the woman screaming in the hallway for hours on end. From his exhaustion and pain and confusion of the whole situation, he would find himself dozing in and out of consciousness, beginning to doze off at the morbid lullaby of the sounds of agony and pain from the hallway. And he was in such a haze that he failed to notice that from the hallway, something had slithered into the room with him. That is, until he felt a sharp pain on his big toe. He yelled as he tried to pull himself away from whatever had hurt his foot, but he couldn't due to the restraints that bound him to the chair. He looked down and screamed as he saw what had harmed him. It was an armless man whose legs were bound together with barbed wire, which forced him to inch around the floor like a worm. His head was bald, covered in scabs, and his eyelids were gone, making his eyes these bloodshot white orbs. Then the man in the chair saw what had caused his pain. The bald man on the ground that had teeth in it, and they were replaced with old rusty screws that he had used to bite the man's foot. He had a chain around his neck which led to the doorway. Holding the other end of the chain lead was another man, this one standing in the doorway. He was tall, fat,
so retarded, man,
and naked. He too was covered in scabs from head to toe. He wore a red sack over his head which only had one eye hole brutally cut out, and through that opening for his vision, he was staring at the man in the chair intently. However, he would notice that this massive figure in the doorway was also using a sort of male appendage while staring at him. While that's going on, the one on the ground would again bite at the man, causing him to bring his
He was jerking off.
foot down to the best of his ability with their strength and kick down on the ground, which caused him to scream out in pain as his head bounced off the floor. This too only seemed to excite the handler, and this act of pain would make the handler enjoy the sight so much that a mist of black ants would shoot out of his appendage, and after doing so, he would take it.
What the fuck? So now he's fucking jerking off and coming black ants? What in the fuck, dude?
Pets, to believe. Once again, leaving the man alone. Seeing the ants that were shot out of this man fall
Yeah,
around,
I'm gonna ejaculate some fucking ants real quick, guys. BRB.
or maybe not.
Yeah, this does sound like some Indian mythology.
The man in the chair would throw up onto himself, unable to move anywhere to have done so. I promise that's the worst effects. He would scream for someone to help him that he didn't belong to. After a while, someone moved into the room. As he heard the footsteps coming down the hallway and getting closer to his room, he braced himself for what nightmare was about to walk through the door and report him further. But instead, a woman walked in. She was missing an eye, her skin was a sickly
That's even worse.
pale, and she was covered in rags. All things considered, though, she didn't seem as nightmarish as the other things that had come to his room so far. She didn't seem to walk in with ill intent either. Instead, she would ask him if he was still considering if he wanted to feed the pig. He would say that he was still considering it. Before asking what she wanted, she would say that she was once, long ago, sitting right where he was, deciding if she wanted to feed the pig or stay here in the Black Farm. And she chose to stay, to not feed the pig. And she has been here ever since. The man would ask what was out there, gesturing to the hallway and the sounds of wailing and agony that came from within it. And she would say she couldn't even begin to describe it. She said that they had always told her that hell was worse, but she wasn't sure if she believed it. And if it was, it could be much worse than this place already was. Here, people are tortured in every conceivable way. And if he chose to stay, he would be one of them, being tortured for all that is, unless he fed the pig. She said that when she made her decision not to, she was too much of a coward to risk things getting even worse than this place was. Yes, there was a chance that she could go back to her life, but she was too scared to end up in hell and see if it was even worse. The man would ask what feeding the pig meant, what would happen if he decided he wanted to. She would say that he would have to see for himself. She would advise him to think hard, though. Sometimes, suffering through your fear is better than suffering through eternity. He would cry out and ask what he should do. And she would tell him, in a whisper, feed the pig. And at those words, he too would do. What's the one again? She began to wonder what he should do, really thinking about it.
Feed that motherfucking pig. Alright, we
And Wayne was out. He just wanted to escape from his problems. He made a mistake. The Black Farm was worse than he thought any afterlife could be. He would give anything to go back to his life. But what if he wasn't sent back? What if he was sent to help living people from here? It seemed impossible, but from what everyone told him, it had to. But ultimately he decided that living here in regret for all eternity, wondering if he should have fed the pig or not, would be worse than ending up in hell. The punishments and the torture would be more severe there, but he would know he had tried everything he possibly could to get back to his own life. He called for Danny, telling him that he had made a decision. A few seconds later, he heard footsteps coming down the hallway, and Danny would again enter the room. He told him his choice, and Danny would sarcastically say that he must have thought along the home. However, the man in the chair would say that if Danny were in his position, he would have done the same thing. But Danny would say that he had been in his place before, and that he had chosen different. Danny would put a cloth in the man's eyes and blind him. He would cut the rope, freeing the man from the chair that he had been confined to for hours. Danny would instruct the man to keep the blindfold on and follow him, so the man would put his hand on Danny's shoulder and follow him out of the room and into the hallway. And as they walked through the hallway, the man heard the sounds of screaming and crying echoing into his room from within. You'd hear new sounds, one that the walls had blocked him from hearing before, the sounds of metal clanging, of meat ripping, and his mind raced to imagine what horrors were in this hallway that he couldn't see as a result of his blindfold. And he heard something moving from the tent and getting closer as he followed Dan. He felt hot breath against his neck, and the sound of a tongue ripping his lips from just next to his ear. Whatever it was that was so close, it haunted him, saying that he was going to feed the pig, that he would be a great meal for the hungry pig. He would laugh and before backing up. And Danny was quiet the whole time. As they walked, the man went from hot to cold to shivering as though he was walking through different climates in an instant. And he went from that freezing cold to finally of blazing heat and a thick humidity. His feet felt like he was walking on warm iron now. It sounded like he was walking through a factory. He could hear machines whirring, flames blazing. He could taste the dirt and smell ash in the air. He and Danny came to a halt.
Alright, where's the fucking pig?
In front of them by some distance, he'd hear chains rattling, before a deafening wail of a pig squealing erupted. It sounded absolutely massive. Danny would announce that he had brought another one who wanted to feed the pig. There was a pause before Danny would speak again, saying, "If that is what you wish," as though he was answering some unspoken command of the surely gargantuan beast in front of them. Danny walked behind the man and pushed him forward, telling him to approach the pig. He did as instructed. Though unable to see, he reached out blindly before him.
You, Griffin, you're the pig, that's right. And I demand the super shekels for my feeding, I guess. There you go.
And he felt tears running down his eyes as he got closer to this thing. He pleaded for Danny to pick off the blindfold so that he could see what he was walking towards. But Danny would assure him that he didn't want to see any of this. As he walked, a repugnant smell hit his nose, causing him to gag as he smelled the massive living flesh that he could not see before him. He vomited into the cloth that covered his face, sobbing as he did so, that Danny just kept pushing him forward. Directly in front of him now, another deafening squeal erupted from the massive pig's mouth, its hot breath blowing against the man's whole body. With an outstretched hand, he felt the pig's snout. He wanted to recoil, but Danny forced his hand back onto the beast. The pig was bigger than he thought. It had to weigh over a ton. Ante didn't even begin to describe it, and he could feel as it opened its mouth. He reached his hands inside and could feel teeth the size of kitchen knives into the cavernous opening that was this thing's mouth. Danny would be able to feed the pig, but he had made his choice and now he had to live with it. He was either going to go home or go to hell. There was only one way to find out. Danny instructed him to climb inside the pig's mouth. The man trembled as he realized what feed the pig had meant. He had to feed himself to this thing. He would begin to protest, but Danny would tell him to climb inside and not to quit moving forward until the pig was done with him. The man pleaded and begged, saying that there had to be another way, but Danny would tell him to go. He can do this. He can actually feed himself to this thing. But the words of the woman he had met earlier ran through his mind. Suffering through your fears is better than suffering for eternity. She was right. He sent up a silent prayer and begged for mercy before beginning to climb inside the mouth of the pig. Its hot breath washed over him as he grabbed the tooth and pulled himself forward until he was inside the mouth of the pig. His head, arms, and torso landed on the spongy tongue of the beast. He reached for another tooth and pulled himself in further. It was so hot, so humid that he almost passed out, but he moved he had to keep going. Saliva and mucus covered him as he pulled himself deeper, getting his legs and feet past the lips of the pig. Fully in its mouth, he reached for another tooth and pulled himself forward as he began to cry. And that's when the pig began to chew. Its teeth ripped through his flesh and bones, crunching and tearing at him. He cried out in agony as he reached forward to pull what was left of himself further. Doing so, as the pig bit down for another bite, he felt and heard his bones pop, his muscles tear, his body was being ripped apart. The pain was unimaginable, but he just kept going. He cried for no stop as he grabbed another tooth and pulled forward. He could feel a shift in pressure as he realized he was nearing the end of its mouth. He forced himself to continue. He was almost there. Just as he was about to let darkness overtake him, as the pig bit down again, this time ripping his insides and organs apart, he pulled himself forward one last time. He felt his body drop as he began to fall down the pig's throat. The heat was intense as he fell, and he screamed as he fell down the seemingly infinite drop. But his eyes were open, and he would realize he could see it. Just before he hit the ground with a painful thud, to where he was expecting to see the insides of the pig. He instead looked up and saw the ceiling of his shed. His throat burned. He was thirsty. But he would look up and see, hanging from the ceiling, was a rope that had snapped. He was alive, and he began to sob on the floor of the woodshed. He was thankful that he had been spared, and promised not to waste a second chance at life. He would promise to devote his life to those in need. He didn't want anyone else to ever have to feed the pig. And that, everyone, is Feed the Pig. I really liked the story. I thought it was a really dark and twisted look at it.
Medic! Now he will dedicate himself to feeding the dog. Oh my god.
Enemy attack is underway on Bravo.
Take what you can carry.
Yeah, the ejaculation of ants was really a necessary detail to include. It really added to the overall, moral of the story.
Have enemy rockets located in the mission area.
Yeah, that was some slop tent if I've ever heard it. Alright, well I may go ahead and get off, guys. I'm kind of tired, so... I wasn't even planning on streaming this long tonight. So... I need to get some sleep. I haven't slept really at all in the past, like, 50 or so hours, so... Hopefully can get more than an hour or two of sleep.
Alright, we have secured objective.
That would be nice. But anyway, I hope you'll have a great Sunday. Make sure to wish your mom a happy Mother's Day if you haven't already. And anyway,
I need a medic!
I will I'll talk to everybody later. Peace out, guys.
I owe you one.
We have lost control of Alpha. Objective Bravo has fallen to the enemy. Hostile forces are still controlling the fight. Break their hold. We are targeting objective Delta. Objective Charlie is under control.
It's fucking hit! Medic! Fuck! Medic!
Okay, we have an enemy sniper located in the mission area.
Attention! Our troops have secured Echo. Hostiles are attacking Objective Echo. Our troops are attacking Bravo. All right, Objective Echo is under control. We have secured more objectives. Be advised, the enemy have maintained their advantage. We must gain control. We need attack support on the marked objective.
Need a medic! Grab what you can.
Enemy forces have captured Charlie. Attention! Hostiles have secured Objective Charlie. We're engaging Objective Charlie. All units, we must recover the mission. Hostiles are close to victory. We have neutralized Charlie. We now control more objectives. Defend all positions. Move to attack the mark objective.
We have an eyes on enemy tank in your area.
Thank you.
We now hold more objectives. Secure our defenses. Enemies are attacking